Welcome, everyone. Most of us know by now that cybersecurity is evolving faster than ever, and staying on top of patches, endpoints, and dashboards can get overwhelming. Today, we're diving into CASE SMA 15.0 to show how the latest improvements give you the insights and tools you need to stay ahead, so you can work smarter, reduce risk, and simplify your daily security tasks. Leading the way is Jillian Solomon, who knows SMA 15.0 inside and out, and is ready to show you the tips and tricks that make these updates really work for you. All right, Jillian, let's jump in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name's Jillian Solomon. I'm a senior solutions consultant for Quest Software. And today we're going to be going over the KACE Systems Management Appliance version 15.0, which will be released very shortly. As far as agenda is concerned, we're going to talk about the revamped dashboard, which is probably the biggest feature that is included as part of the release. We've also added CVSS and EPSS scores as part of the patch catalog. We've added some Splashtop improvements if you are using Splashtop today. We've also added a favorite feature so that you can easily navigate to your favorite pages within the CASE SMA. We've also added some additional enhancements that we'll touch on briefly. We'll do a live demonstration of mostly the revamped dashboard, since that's going to take the majority of the time, and then we'll open it up to Q&A afterwards. So most of you that are CASE users, you probably are not that impressed with the current dashboard. We have some predefined widgets. You can add widgets, remove widgets, but there's really no customization that's included. I'm happy to say that we've now completely revamped our dashboard. We now give you flexible layouts with drag and drop capability. You can have multiple dashboards per user. You can also set the default so that you can quickly get to that dashboard if you need to see it. We've also added some advanced widget options, charts that are included. You can do SQL queries. There's also role-based visibility as far as the widgets are concerned. You can also now share the dashboard via email, and essentially all it is an HTML snapshot, but you can also schedule that to be emailed to an individual or group of people. We've also added some performance boosts for caching and on-demand refreshes so that you can see the data in real time. I thought it was important to give you a functional diagram as far as what happens behind the scenes. So just so you understand, when you log into the CASE administration console, the very first thing we're going to address or uncover is if you have permissions to actually view the widgets or dashboards that are included. If you do not, you'll get a message saying that you do not have permissions to view this widget. Think of maybe you have a role where you can see Service Desk, but maybe afterwards somebody removes that role and you're no longer able to see that widget. You would see that message presented. If you do have the ability to view the widget or dashboard, it's going to find out if there's a force refresh, and I'll go through that to show you what a force refresh looks like. If you do a force refresh, it will fetch the data from the database. If you do not force a refresh, it'll evaluate to find out if the data is valid based on the last timestamp. If the data is updated, it will do a fetch right on demand for you. So again, you can kind of see this from a visual perspective, but we'll walk through this during the demonstration as well. The dashboard is a big undertaking, so I'm sure there's some questions. I'm going to kind of go through these questions so that you know the answers ahead of time, but what happens when it takes a long time to fetch the dashboard widget data? Now think of this as part of the widgets that you create, they can be custom SQL. So if you have a SQL that's doing a lot of work behind the scenes, it may take more than the allotted time to fetch that data and retrieve it. So if it does time out, you will get a message saying that the request timed out while fetching your data. Please contact your report administrator. What is the default dashboard data fetch timeout? It is 5 minutes. So if it takes longer than 5 minutes, you're going to see that message pop up. Can the default timeout be changed? Yes, it can, but it has to be done within the database itself. Why can't I see some counts reflected in my world geography chart? Your data must match the country names that the world geo chart expects in order to reflect it correctly in the chart. For example, instead of using USA or America, you should use United States of America. Can I convert my existing standard report to a dashboard report? Yes, you can. What library do we use to generate the dashboard charts? We're using Chart.js. Are we able to drill into the data filters directly from the widgets? Unfortunately, I was kind of disappointed about this. The answer is no. Chart.js, the library that we use for our visualization, does not natively support drill down functionality. But we will need to do some customs code on the back end to support this in a future release. So it's not there yet, but it will be coming. We've also added smarter patching for our customers, intelligent patching, I should say. So just instead of just knowing if a patch is critical, we're now adding CVSS and EPSS scores. The CVSS scores will measure vulnerability severity from 0 to 10, and the EPSS scores will predict the likelihood of exploitation, and that'll go from 0 to 100. But we're pulling that data or that information from various sources, one being NIST and Meter. We've added patch filters so that you can basically target based on this criteria. We've also added some new widgets to reflect this information. And we do include the CVE links as part of the patch catalog. So if you want to view the information about that particular CVE, you can get to it directly. Splashtop improvements. So for those of you that may not be using Splashtop, we've actually OEM'd Splashtop as part of a remote control. It's not included for all customers, but customers can choose to add it. I will tell you it's very inexpensive to add, but building on the 14.1 integration, we now have the ability to do one-click remote access from within a device detail. We now support up to 2 concurrent sessions. I know that some customers I worked with initially that were testing it, we were retrieving the RMM code, and sometimes that code would not get pulled back automatically, and you kind of had to do some magic behind the scenes to get that to work. That has been now resolved. For those of you that may be using the service desk, we now have the ability to remote control directly from within a ticket. So as you're working a ticket, if the device is attached to that ticket, I can initiate a remote control session right from there. Also, as part of the remote control, you can blank the screen. So if you don't want the user seeing what you're doing on their computer, you could blank the screen. It was just a black screen. Some end users would get scared thinking that their computer, blew up or was broken. But you now have the ability of putting a logo or a custom screen logo on the back end so that when it is blank, they see something from that perspective. We've also added a favorites feature. So if you're the type of person that goes to specific spots within the SMA frequently, instead of having to do multiple clicks, you can now identify up to 50 favorites per person. You can drag and drop the reordering of those favorites. Again, it gives you quick access to frequent workflows in large environments. However, it does not support dynamic context-driven pages, and we'll point that out as we go into the actual demo. Some additional enhancements that we've added in 15.0, we've now added Linux patch scheduling, where you can, when you're deploying patches for Linux, you can actually choose security only or all patches. I believe we only had the option of doing all patches, and now you can do security only, or maybe vice versa, but you now have the ability to do both. We've added some security logging where we have modern secure mechanisms that replace the legacy syslog. Script log retention, you can now determine how long we keep those that log for scripts that run in your environment. And then we've also added some SIM monitor integration for improved secure logs for third-party tools. Unfortunately, I had to build my environment from scratch. We didn't have a KBIN available to apply an upgrade to my environment. So I had to build a new appliance, and within that, I obviously didn't have much data. So I wanted just to give you a screenshot to show you some of the cool things that you can do with data actually represented in the dashboards. I mean, I do have some, but I thought this was a nice view to see the different types of information that you can see from a widget perspective. Okay, so now we're going to do a demonstration of the new dashboard. We'll start with this first, since this, as I mentioned, it's the bulk of the functionality that's been added in 15.0. But in the dashboard, on the dashboard screen, you're going to see a gear shift. And this is reflected in every dashboard throughout the SMA. So inventory, asset management, patching, service desk, they'll all have this gear shift here. The first thing it's going to ask you is if you want to switch dashboard screens. So I can either sort by name, or I can do I can look for the most recent dashboard that I've created. You'll notice if I select it, I've only created one thus far. And this is showing me my dashboard is empty at this time. I'm going to go ahead and go back. And we're going to go ahead and talk about the dashboard settings now. So when you create a new dashboard, you'll give it a name. You can set this as your default dashboard. You can put in a description so that you know exactly what this dashboard is going to consist of. The color schema that you see here, if you're a monochromatic person, you may want to have certain colors, like all different versions of green. I can go ahead and add those, and you'll see they're added. I can remove any of these colors if you don't want to utilize them. And then I can also add colors that I may want to see. And it is important as far as the order that they're in. When it's creating the widget, it's going to use that as the primary color, secondary color, etc. You can also drag and drop the order in which you want them displayed as well. If you want to revert back to the original colors, you can do that as well. Layout screen, you can do three widgets across, 4 widgets across, or 5 widgets across, and then you'll save it. So let me just go ahead and create this one. We'll call this a I'm going to add a new dashboard. We'll call this for demonstration purposes. And then this is where I have the ability of adding widgets to it. Now again, the widgets I can filter by particular category. So if I just want to see asset management widgets, inventory widgets, service desk widgets, or security widgets, it will filter appropriately. Role-based administration does come into play. So for instance, if I do not have access to service desk, I would not see any widgets that I can add from a service desk perspective. This will be your list. You can go ahead and just select it. That'll put that particular widget on your dashboard. We also have the ability of emailing the dashboard. So if you want to send this to a specific individual or group of people, this is where you'll put in the email address. You can give it a subject, a message, and then you can choose the layout as far as, you know, what that layout should look like when it's emailed to the individual. Again, it's really just a snapshot of the actual dashboard at that given time. They're not going to be able to drill into any of the data from the report, or I'm sorry, from the email dashboard, but you definitely can send that out if you need to. If you're old school and would like to print it, you can definitely do that as well, where I can right click and hit print, and you'll see it's going to give me a preview of the actual dashboard here. Okay. Force refresh. This will basically refresh all the information on the dashboard. It's going to give you, are you sure you want to refresh? We'll hit yes. And we're going to kind of go through some of these items that you see here. So every particular widget may have up to 5 different icons. The first one is the informational icon that basically tells you what is contained in the description information when you added that particular widget. I have the ability of refreshing it. Now you can, for certain widgets, you can turn or disable that if you don't want people refreshing that particular widget. Again, maybe it's a custom SQL report that you've created and you just don't want to risk adding that much work to the actual box. You can basically remove refresh. I can delete it or remove it, and that's just removing it from this particular dashboard. It's not deleting it for good. And then I also have the ability of editing this particular widget. So if I wanted to change the name of it, if I wanted to select a different type of chart, you can see my different options here. We can do a bar chart, donut chart, line, pie, polar area, radar, or table. You can choose to use the default colors, or again, you can add your own colors. The legend position, do you want that to be at the top of the screen, at the bottom, the right, or the left? And then you can actually add in information as far as X axis titles and Y axis titles. For instance, what are we looking at? This is access by status, so I might say status is at the bottom. And then you can see that's added to the actual widget itself. I can also change it to be horizontal if I want. Okay, so now that you know that how this can be customized, we're going to go into, so when you finally have the chance to upgrade to version 15.0, you do have the ability of going into the report section, and one of our developers actually created a new topic or a new category called samples dashboard reports. And this is giving you an example of every different type of widget that we support and what that data will look like. Okay, so if I go to custom, these are some of the widgets that I've actually duplicated already so that you have an idea of what it actually looks like. So this device is by inventory type. If I go ahead and drill into it. Okay. So this is the actual report, and you can see it basically tells me I have 4 agentless devices and 3 devices that have the full agent installed. So if I go ahead and edit this report, the aggregation basically determines what you're grouping by. So you'd want to group by inventory type, right? Because we want to see what type of devices are part of my inventory. And then we want to do the aggregate function as the actual count. And you can add, we have multiple information that you can kind of query off of. Sometimes you have to just play around with it to see what it looks like. But we do have some Mario blocks here that will tell you information about, what this actually means to you, as well as the group by some instructions here as well. Maybe you wanted to do a top 5. You can also limit the number of rows as well. Yeah, so this is an example of a SQL-based report. So not using the wizard. Basically, you just pasting in SQL information. And again, pretty much the same type of setup that you would do for a custom report, but then you'll see it says, would you like to use this report for a dashboard? And you can choose yes or no. You also tell it what type of widget you want to utilize. Again, you can't change these, the ones that she's pre-built for you, but you can duplicate it and make changes to it. So if you prefer a different type of widget, you can select it from there. The value versus the max value. So it looks like it shows me 33 open tickets based on this particular gauge. It will ask you, do you want to only include this particular widget in a certain section of the SMA? Maybe you just want it in the service desk. You don't want it on the home dashboard. So this drop-down menu will give you the ability to pick where that widget actually shows up at. You can include a link. So if I click on the actual widget, I'll show you this in a little bit, but it can take you directly to an area that coincides with the widget that you're talking about. Because we don't, when you're creating this report, we can't assess if that person has rights or privileges to that particular section of the SMA. This is where you would actually say, okay, for this particular widget, I do need access to the ticket section. So I have that selected, and by selecting that, that'll allow me to view that particular widget. I think we're going to do a training that goes a little bit deeper into the SQL portion of it. But just so you know that any of the widgets that already existed in the SMA, you will not be able to edit those particular widgets. But again, you can create your own or duplicate it and put additional, filters on it so that you can drill into the data or see the data more easily. But you can remove those widgets and start fresh. But yeah, I think we're going to go into another session and we'll go deeper into the SQL portion of it, just because, as SQL, if you're SQL savvy, that may be of very interest to you. If you're not SQL savvy, you may not care to watch it. So we'll do a deeper dive on that in another session. Okay. I'm going to point out a couple other things that we have done, probably from best to least, or most major to least. So we're going to go into the patch management, point out a few things that you can see. If we go to the catalog now, I can actually build a label. Is known exploit vulnerability. You can see we now have the ability of filtering on that. I can say is either true or false. I'm going to say true for this example. I'm going to hit test. And then I'm going to pull up a particular patch here. And then you can see this is the new section that we have. So we're now recording the CVE as part of that patch. It's letting you know the base score from a CVSS perspective. Which goes from 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, and then the EPSS score from 0 to 100%, and if it's a known exploit vulnerability, yes or no, and if it's been used in ransomware campaigns. So now you can filter patches and be aggressive on, and more important patches versus just, targeting critical patches. But from a CVE perspective, if I go ahead and click on that, it's going to take me directly to the NIST website and give me more details about that particular patch or that particular CVE and why it's rated as such. Other thing that we did, if you're using KACE for Linux package upgrades, you'll notice if we go into a schedule on the action, we didn't have this capability before. I believe it was all patches or maybe just security patches. I can't remember if it's vice versa, but neither here nor there. You now either can target all patches or security patches only. Again, there's a Mirio block here that gives you a little bit more information, but it does say that Raspbian and CentOS do not differentiate between regular and security updates. Therefore, all updates are installed when upgrading packages for these operating systems. So just be aware of that as well. The next thing we're going to go into is the Splashtop enhancements. So if you are using the service desk currently and you do have the remote control from Simple Help that's included, you'll notice that now I have the ability to select a device, and you can see I can hit remote control from here. If I go ahead and click on it, this is where you can do custom settings for each individual. So it's prompting me saying that I'm going to be remoting into this particular device. Do I want to use custom settings? Yes or no? If I did, this is the custom or the settings that you would set up initially in the 14.1 release that basically reflects your entire environment. There was no way to really differentiate between, maybe for servers, as an example, you don't want to prompt for approval. Whereas, if you're remoting into a end user's machine, you need to ask them, is it okay for you to remote into their device? So every time you go to remote into a device, it's going to ask you if you want to use custom settings or not. And you're probably pretty familiar with these. Security options really has to do with the technician. Does the technician, do you want to prompt them for an additional password? Do you want to require them to put in their Windows or Mac login? Or you can have a security code that they have to enter that security code in correctly, or it will not allow them to remote into a device. The second portion is for the end user side of it, or what's on the other end of the remote control session. Typically I have mine set to off, so that if I remote into a device, it just gets me into that device immediately. Or you can have it where it will prompt the user, and it will either the prompt will be on the screen for 30 seconds. If they don't approve it for 30 seconds, you can either where it will give you permission to remote into that device, or it can reject that connection. Audio options, more or less, you probably don't need to play around with this or the resolution. And then if you want to hide the remote control icon from the taskbar, you can choose to do that as well. There is enable secure remote logging. This is the new feature that's been added, and this kind of goes into details if you are using a SIM tool. And basically there's instructions. It'll take you directly to a knowledge base article and walk you through that process. Just so you know, we're going to continue this series for CASE as far as different topics that will focus on specific trainings. We're going to do something on February 12th with one of my colleagues, James Rico, and we're going to do an event or a training on CASE scripting from apprentice to automation wizard. And if you're interested, please scan this QR code and you'll get registered. It'll take you to the registration for this particular session. So thank you, everyone, and really appreciate everybody's time.